The Denver Broncos had a very mediocre 2021 season. They finished the year with a 7-10 record and ended up being dead last in the AFC West. It was clear heading into the offseason that the Broncos had a very talented roster. However, there was a big hole at the quarterback position. Drew Lock made it very evident that he was not a quality starting option in Denver, and the Broncos' championship window was set to close far before Lock improved into the player that they needed him to be. The offseason trade for Russell Wilson paired with change in ownership. Also in the offseason, the ownership of the Denver Broncos changed hands. Patrick Dennis Bullen was the previous owner, and under his watch, the Broncos became what they are today. He was the majority owner of the team through some of the franchise's biggest moments. Bullen was such a great owner, he was even inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. After his tragic passing in 2019, ownership of the Broncos was transferred over to his estate. They then announced in 2022 that the team would be up for sale. Eventually, the Walter Penner family ownership group emerged and paid $4.65 billion. One of the big draws to buying the Broncos, especially last season, was the fact that they recently made a blockbuster trade to land quarterback Russell Wilson. Many thought that this was the perfect move for Denver to make and believed that it established them as a true Super Bowl contender. The Seahawks were not going to give up what had been their franchise quarterback for almost a decade for nothing, and Denver was forced to pay the price to land an established vet like Wilson. The full details of the trade sent Wilson and a 2022 fourth-round pick to the Broncos, and in return, the Seahawks received Drew Lock, Noah Fant, Shelby Harris, and 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and a 5th-round pick. Along with giving up a lot of players and a lot of picks to land Wilson, the Broncos also gave him a contract that would make him the second highest paid player in the NFL at the time he signed the deal. Denver and Wilson were able to agree to a 5-year, $245 million extension that has the potential of keeping Wilson a Bronco for the remainder of his career. As previously mentioned, this trade sent waves through the NFL world, and many thought that the Broncos were destined for a deep playoff run, if not a Super Bowl victory. Shortly after the trade was made, the Broncos shot up to 3rd in the Super Bowl odds, only behind the Kansas City Chiefs and the Green Bay Packers. Denver's terrible start to the 2022 season. It appeared that the sky was the limit for the Broncos heading into the 22 season. With how talented the roster had been in 2021, it wasn't far-fetched to believe that Wilson was going to be enough to put the Denver roster over the top and truly push them into the Super Bowl contention. However, as we know, that's not how it played out through the opening half of the season. And there's even been some chatter that Wilson could be traded again very soon if things do not begin working out in Denver. Through 9 games, the Broncos currently have a record of 3-6, and unless they go on a historic run through the second half of the season, they'll be watching the playoffs from home this year. Interestingly, every single Broncos game this season has been decided by 9 points or less. Denver opened their season with what could have been a revenge game for Wilson as they faced off against the Seahawks. However, Denver was defeated by a final score of 17-16. This has more or less been the story of the season for the Broncos. They're always within striking distance of a win. However, more times than not, they've been unable to close out the game and bring home a win. Who's to blame for the dysfunction in Denver? While it's unfair to blame all of the Broncos' misfortune on Russell Wilson this season, it's kind of difficult not to. Denver traded for Wilson with the hopes that he would still be a top quarterback in the league. However, he's fallen insanely short of those expectations. While his level of play does have a chance to improve the more time he spends with Denver and the more comfortable he is with running the offense, he looked like a shell of himself 9 games into the season. With this year appearing to be a lost cause for Denver, there should not be as much pressure on his shoulders to carry the team to anything substantial this season. Currently, Wilson ranks 34th in completion percentage. With there only being 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL, Wilson's ranking this low is such an important stat, it's a very concerning sign. Along with this, he ranks 12th in passing yards per game, 27th in touchdowns, and is tied for 2nd in the most interceptions thrown. These are by no means promising stats for the veteran quarterback, and to pile on even more, the rest of the team has been performing at a quality level. Denver's defensive unit has been one of the best performing in the entire NFL season. They give up the 2nd to lowest yards per game in the league, only behind the 49ers. Along with this, they're also keeping opposing teams out of the end zone. The most points they've given up this season are 32 to the Vegas Raiders, and on average, Denver is only giving up around 17 points per game. With the defense playing at this level, it's almost unbelievable that Denver has the record it does. However, Wilson and the offense have not been able to get it done this year. If the same thing happens next season once running back Javonte Williams returns from an ACL tear, Wilson may end up having a very short stint as a Bronco. What should the Broncos do moving forward? It's clear that if the Broncos continue playing at this level, they'll not sniff the postseason during the Russell Wilson era. The front office and the coaching staff must make it very clear to him that if he does not improve his play by the end of next season, they're going to move him to a different team. With Wilson already putting in over a decade in the NFL, a major regression in his play is on the horizon. If the Broncos can get in front of this and trade him before he falls off, they'd be able to regain some of the draft capital they used to acquire Wilson. However, the better option for both sides is that Denver avoids a massive rebuild and Wilson can once again look like the quarterback that he was in Seattle. With this season not going anywhere near as well as expected, it's clear that the new owners are not thrilled and may already have Wilson on a short leash. With rumors swirling near the trade deadline that the Broncos may consider moving Wilson, it's evident that he's on the hot seat. Whether this year was just a fluke year caused by a new system, new teammates, and a new city, or Wilson has truly begun to regress already, if he plays anywhere near as poorly as he has this season, there's no doubt that the Broncos will be trying their hardest to trade him from the team and begin rebuilding.